Mahakasyap always used to be quiet. He used to sit in the corner simply watching the master, Gautam Buddha. He never talked much. Other disciples would say, "Why you don't talk? And as far as we know, you have come from a very far away land." He said, "It is true that I have come from very far to attain, to learn, to seek wisdom. But the moment I arrived, the moment I had a glimpse of the Master, all my quest, all my rush to attain dropped then and there. Now I am happy to just have a glimpse of the Master. Nothing I wish for, just by being in His omnipresence, I can relate, I can understand." And it is said that the first disciple of Gautam Buddha to attain enlightenment was Mahakasyap. Once enlightened, Mahakasyap realized that now he cannot stay with the master. He has to move on, and so he would not go near Buddha. Buddha himself had to walk toward Mahakasyap and say, "Mahakasyap, don't try to deceive me. Now there is no need to sit under this tree. Get on and move. There are millions of people who are still groping in darkness, and you are sitting here enlightened. Take this fire of your enlightenment and make as many people aflame as possible." Mahakasyap was in tears. He realized that enlightenment is a great responsibility. Always remember, enlightenment is not only enlightenment, it is also a great responsibility. You have come to realize the ultimate peace, the joy, the blissfulness. Now it is your responsibility to share it, to go as far away as possible. Now there is no point in sitting by the side of the master. It always happens. A devoted disciple never wants to go away from the master. Mahakasyap was also finding it difficult to move away from the master. But the master, Gautam Buddha, comes and says, "You cannot sit under this tree. There are millions of people groping in darkness. It is your responsibility to share the bliss you have experienced." A real master never wants his disciple to remain dependent on him. Always remember this. Lao Tzu, the divine master, says, "When the disciple is ready, the master appears. And when the disciple is truly ready, the master disappears." Always remember, the real master, the perfect master, never makes you dependent on him. And if any master makes people dependent, if any master creates dependence in people, if he makes people dependent on him, he is not a true master. He is a kind of exploiter. He is trying to dominate you in the name of religion. He is trying to enslave you. He cannot give you freedom. Gautam Buddha was the real master. And so when Mahakasyap attains enlightenment, the master instructs him to move on, to go back to the towns and cities and enlighten those who are thirsty for God. Jesus says that those who have the thirst will be filled, will be blessed. Those who hunger and thirst for righteousness shall be filled. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled, says Jesus. Righteousness is Swadharma. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna emphasizes on Swadharma. God consciousness is always found in righteousness, swadharma. And so whosoever is thirsty for God, is hungry to experience God, will be filled, will be blessed, because that is what the whole goal is of the God's messenger. Be it Jesus, Muhammad, Mahavira or Mahakasyap. The whole purpose is to spread the light of awareness. Make as many people aflame as possible. This human world is vast, so vast that your mind cannot contain it, but your heart can. Always remember, if you try to feel the vastness of this human world by your mind, you can never feel or realize. But if you sit down and start moving deeper and deeper into your being, then through the light of consciousness that is within you, you can feel, you can realize the vastness of this whole universe, not just the world on this planet. And then when you self-realize the vastness, you also realize how small you are, even smaller than an ant. And then you realize what a fool you have been all these births and rebirths, always moving with such a big fat ego of I am somebody. You see, this is the whole process to come to the realization that I am nothing, that I am nobody. Always remember, God comes only to a nobody. Love flows only to someone who is a nobody. When you love, you have to become a nobody. If you remain somebody, then love never happens. Once it happened, there was a shrine, a beautiful shrine, and a very old man used to sweep the floors of that shrine. Every day, every morning and every evening, he would come, he would bow before the Sufi saint's photo and then start sweeping the floor. And in that shrine, many scholars and pandits also used to come. And they all would gather and give long discourses, and many people would also gather to listen to their discourses. And it used to get all packed. And in that crowd, the old man simply would continue to sweep the floors with devotion. His eyes would become wet in the fond memory of this Sufi saint. Nobody would pay attention to him. He was the most ignored person, because people always see to that which shines, all that glimmers. And those pandits and those scholars would always come in shimmering dress. After all, people have to recognize them as somebody. And so one day, the music was playing. People had gathered. It was a festive day, and suddenly, from nowhere, the Sufi saint appeared. And the pandits and the scholars and the people around, they all rushed towards him to touch his feet. But the Sufi saint ignored all of them and rushed towards the old man. The old man was sweeping the floors as usual, reciting the Sufi saint's name. And he was so much engrossed in the name of the Sufi saint that he didn't even realize that the master whose name he is reciting is coming towards him, rushing towards him. And the master came, the Sufi saint came and hugged the old man. And the old man started crying. The master said, Abdul, that was his name, Abdul. And old Abdul said, Master, I am blessed by your divine touch. How to thank you? How to express my gratitude? How to and what to say? I am speechless. The master said, Abdul, you have said so much through your devotion. You have said so much through your love that now nothing need to be said. You are my fellow. God always comes to a nobody, not to the priest and not to the pandits, and not to the scholars and not to the philosophers, but only to someone who is as beautiful as Abdul, a nobody. The whole gathering of people and the pandits and the scholars were taken aback because they could not understand what was so special in that old man, a sweeper, that the master ignored them and simply rushed towards a nobody. And they haven't found the answer yet. And they will never find the answer ever. Because to find the answer, you too have to become a nobody, like Abdul. Until then, you will remain on the circumference waiting for the answer. It happens. Some of you who listen to my podcast, you people connect because the words that I share surpass your mind, and then you feel the bliss. So when I am speaking, when I am sharing my heart, and when you are listening, it is your heart. The connection happens because at the moment of sharing, the mind ceases and the heart wells up. It is a beautiful relating, a resonance that cannot necessarily happen when I am talking and you are listening, because the state of being nobody is not at that moment. It is only when we are in the state of nobody that we can connect. A master can connect with the disciple because the state of nobodiness is there. It is only in the state of nobodiness the real connection happens and not otherwise. Remember, God is not somebody, He is a nobody, or more correctly, nobodiness. God is not something, He is a nothing, or even more correctly, no thingness. He is a creative void. Emptiness, nothingness is the very essence of Buddhist sutras. Jesus says to Nicodemus, you have to reborn. It is a divine message to become a nobody, to drop all the learning, all the scholarships, all the intellectualism, all the notions and preconceived ideas, and to become a zero, to become a Ketu. It is only through the zero, through the shunya, through the emptiness, through the nobodiness that you can experience the divine, the beyond, and it is beautiful. Always remember, you are nobody. You are born as a nobodiness with no name, no form. You will die as a nobody. Name and form are just on the surface. Deep down, you are just a vast space, and it is beautiful. Mahakasyap comes, he comes to learn, to ask many questions, just like you. But the moment he came and had the first glimpse of the master, Gautam Buddha, he dropped everything. All his idea of asking, talking, questioning, everything was dropped. He remained silent. And in that silence, sitting in the corner, he was truly able to connect, to relate, to resonate with the master's sharing. The other disciples questioned a lot, talked a lot, but it was Mahakasyap who became the first disciple of Buddha to attain enlightenment. And when he attained enlightenment, he laughed, a loud belly laugh. Buddha was present. He asked, Mahakasyap, you never talked much, and so now after attaining enlightenment, why you laughed? And Mahakasyap said, Master, I laughed because I never thought that I would be the first to attain enlightenment. I wanted the others to attain first because they were in rush. I was not in rush. I said to myself that let others attain first, then in the end I will attain. But I became the first to attain, and so the laughter came. This is so significant. This is so beautiful, and this is so deep. Only a meditative being can understand the significance of Mahakasyap's words. A man who is in rush to attain will never attain, and a man who is in rush is always ruled by the mind. Such a man always remains where he is. Only a man who has moved beyond the mind can wait, can be patient, can wait for years and years. He is the Mahakasyap. He can say, let others attain, I can attain in the end. And surprisingly, God always opens the door for such a man who is willing to wait, willing to be patient. I would love you all to be like Mahakasyap, to learn from Mahakasyap, to understand how a true disciple is. Only then can you all progress on the spiritual path. Till then, you will remain on the circumference with no peace of mind, no joy, no bliss. Money cannot bring peace to you. Always remember this. In fact, money has provoked one brother to cut the throat of other brother. Money is the reason for all fights and violence and murders. Ramakrishna Paramahans never would keep any money or coins with him. He could not even tolerate the touch of money or silver coins. You know, the greatest difficulty with me is to keep or even to touch money. That is what he used to say. Money has become the master, whereas money should become your slave and not the master. Money should not drive you. You should drive money. Swami Vivekananda, the disciple of Ramakrishna Paramahansa, quotes, he is truly a man to whom money is only a servant. But on the other hand, those who do not know how to make a proper use of it hardly deserve to be called men. Hold your money merely as custodian for what is God's. Have no attachment for it. Let name and fame and money go. They are a terrible bondage. Feel the wonderful atmosphere of freedom. Freedom is above all. Many times I feel I should drop everything and just move to the mountains. But then the Master directs me back to the city. The time is not yet. Still I have to be here. Still some pending karma is to be fulfilled. Mahakasyap remains one of the greatest enlightened beings. Through his journey, he also enlightens us, leaving a wonderful example of a devoted, disciplined, and a meditative disciple who also lived and rejoiced in his nobodiness. A man who has become a nobody has no feet, no wings, no mind, and yet he can fly. He can experience the higher altitudes, the beauty of the beyond. The Master says, walk without feet, fly without wings, and think without mind. You can also experience the beyond. You can also become a Buddha. You can also be like Mahakasyap. But the question is, are you willing to become a nobody? Your answer will decide your journey ahead. Meditate on the words that I have shared. Meditate and let the answer well up from your heart. God will wait for your answer. The Master will wait. The Master can wait for eternity. That is how deep the love of the Master is. That is how deep the Master's compassion is. Turn inwards. look within and find the answer. Mahakasyap, therefore, is an excellent example of Ketu. A fine Ketu can give birth to someone as beautiful as Mahakasyap. He comes from a faraway land to ask many questions to Buddha. He had many questions, but when he comes and when he starts living with the Buddha, all his questions and all his curiosity is put to rest. Just by being in the omnipresence of the Master, he feels the bliss. No questions, no doubts, he remains silent. And because he remains silent, he is able to turn inwards. And that is how his progress happens much faster than the other disciples. The other disciples are in rush. Mahakasyap is not in rush. In fact, he is so much in love with the Master that he says to himself that it is better that I am the last one to attain enlightenment. He wanted to be the last one to attain enlightenment, but he became the very first disciple of Gautam Buddha to attain enlightenment. This is the beauty. This is the beauty of Ketu. That when you become a nobody, when there is no rush, when you are no more impatient, it is then that the grace of the Master, the grace of the Lord showers upon you. And so, when Mahakashyap is enlightened, he laughs because he wanted to be the last one, but he became the first one. And why he wanted to become the last one? Because Buddha had a rule that once you are enlightened, you should not stay with him. You should not stay with Buddha. You should move on. You should spread the light that you have experienced. And Mahakasyap wanted to be with Buddha. That was his love towards his Master. How rare and how precious such a person is. That generally a disciple comes or someone becomes disciple to attain something. But this man, he came to attain something, but he forgot about everything. For him, just to be in the omnipresence of the Master was more than enough. This is how a real Ketu is. This is how a fine Ketu is. And so those who have a very positive Ketu, who have the conjunction of moon with Ketu, or those who have more and more planets in the nakshatra of Ketu, are often found to be more spiritually inclined. They have the potential. They can become a Mahakasyap. Enough for now. Jai Sri Ganesha. Jai Guru. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha.